Hi, good afternoon. My name is Brian, and this is the Nutritional News Network. Today is November 20. What is today? I think today is November 21st. Yes, it's November 21st, 2019. And this show is basically a podcast about things going on in the nutritional industry. It's also things going on with medical issues, any kind of malady that's in here. And just to kind of read a disclaimer before we go any further, these statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This show or products that are produced here on the program is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. And that is for, of course, Nutritional News Network, All Rights Reserved, 2019. So today we're going to talk about a couple of things about what is going on with the world of nutrition. You know, this program is going to be a half-hour long program of basically a lot of information. This one's kind of done, kind of basic. Obviously, in the next couple months, we're going to have a little more production value. That's going to be a very big, good thing that we're going to have, but also, too, it's going to be something that's going to be a little more. This is kind of like a pilot run of the show. Today we're going to talk for 30 minutes over, stubborn toxic fat, how to get rid of it. A lot of people don't know what that means. What's the toxic layer of fat, and how do you get rid of something like that? And what are some remedies for it? And it kind of goes into a lot of interesting topics about that, and how a lot of people in the nuances basically don't really know why it happens. If you're just a layman out there, but I'm going to kind of go because I've been through the process. I've lost 200 pounds back from 2009 to 2012. I've gained 75 pounds of it back, but right now I'm actually in the process of losing another 25 pounds. So these are some great tips and some great things and great strategies that you can use, so that way you can go ahead and get what is necessary for you to be healthy. We're also going to talk about, nutrition news, of course. That'll be once a week on Friday. Today's Thursday, so we won't have a podcast next week because we will have one, but it won't be until Friday because of the holiday. So happy Thanksgiving, everybody out there. Hope you have a very safe and happy holiday. Don't eat too much turkey. That's the biggest thing. Stay healthy and stay happy. That's the most important thing. But the Nutritional News Network is basically about giving you news that you can use in your daily life. And it's about stores that we can go through. We'll have like a news program coming up in the next couple months as well. And of course, a health podcast. Of course, we'll have special guests as well starting in the next few months. So that's all coming up here on the Nutritional News Network. So my name is Brian, and I am glad to be here with you. So we're going to start on our first topic. First topic. Okay. Stubborn toxic layer of fat. Now, people don't know what that means. Well, to give you some insight, the toxic layer of fat is basically, if you've ever had, how do I want to say this? If you've ever had, let's say 5 or 10 pounds, if you're a female, and you want to lose it, and you don't know how to lose it. Now, this is somebody who's premenopausal, not somebody who's postmenopausal. So if that's the case, that's a different scenario altogether. That's another podcast we can go into if you're having that issue. Because obviously, if you're having a tough time losing weight after menopause, that's like, when you're a female, it basically is like shooting Novocaine into your metabolism, and then it slows down. That's part of the process. Then you're given hormone therapy and things like that. But what I'm talking about is the 5 or 10 pounds, like say a female would be trying to lose, or a male's trying to lose, and they just can't lose it no matter what they do. They try to cut calories, they try to cut fat, but still no avail. Now, there's a good reason for that. It's actually beneficial. The reason why the layer of fat is still there, it's considered a toxic layer. Now, I'm going to get the studies on this, but in the 1980s, I think it was in 1982, that they came up with this study about doing a toxicology report, like among living mammals, like rats, pigs, and they also did female breast milk, which I don't think you would have male breast milk unless you have so much estrogen. But breast milk, they looked at the dioxins, they looked at PCBs, they looked at lead, they looked at mercury, and all the heavy metal toxins are in almost 87% of the soils. So, or not the soils, but the blood tests. So that was almost 40 years ago, 38 years ago, when they did this test. Just imagine what we have now. We have genetically altered food. We have genetically altered, crops, genetically altered spices, whatever you want to call it, nutrition. Same thing, vegetables, or produce, farming. Also, too, Wi-Fi. Also, too, 5G that's coming out that could be, and I'm not saying I'm against technology, but I think there's something to be said about, actually getting towards the path of looking at it from a perspective of, is it safe or is it not safe, instead of just putting it up, because it is a microwave technology, and Wi-Fi is microwave, so it's a low rate. Now, microwaves are bad enough, because if you have a Wi-Fi, that could be just as bad. However, that being said, the Wi-Fi, the 5G and things like that, so we had those to the toxins. So I would really love to see what the breast milk is, say in the 2010s or the 2000s, say 20 to 25 years post-study in the early 80s, because in the early 80s, there was no cell phones in 1982. The first cell phone didn't come out until 1983 by Motorola. The first internet for the public didn't come out until about 88, 89, and that was from the military. Or it was very small interconnected networks, so it wasn't really a lot of bad stuff. But then in 1992, the FDA approved for use genetically spliced organisms to put use into the food supply, and it's been almost 30 years since that's happened. So I'm just very curious to see how that can affect. Now, there might not be as much toxicology in that, meaning there might not be as many toxins. However, there could possibly be, instead of heavy metals, there could be genetically altered toxins, endotoxins, things that basically splurge out when you cut something, or if you drink a lot of Diet Pop. Diet Pop has a lot of aspartame. Aspartame is an artificial sweetener. Artificial sweeteners are awful for you because, number one, what they are is they're made out of wood alcohol. So they basically are, when they detoxify, they create a more toxic environment. So a lot of people will ask me, is like, why does my hair get gray after I detox? Well, because your body's actually getting rid of the chemicals, and it's creating a highly reactive chain reaction. So toxic layer of fat, what is the symptoms? A lot of people would say, well, I don't know what it is, but it just seems like I have a constant stomach ache. It feels like I'm constantly nauseous. Now, obviously, I'm not a doctor, so I can't tell you anything, but normally if that's the case, people say, oh, I feel better if I eat some food, but then some people binge and they feel a lot better, but they add on 5 to 10 to 11 pounds, and then their body remembers that, and then they could go at a lower baseline in the future. So that's what, to feel better. However, you're basically stressing your metabolism by losing the weight, but you're stressing your metabolism by the yo-yo dieting. And I can say for firsthand experience that it is a big deal when it comes to that. So when it comes to losing the toxic layer of fat, there's a couple options. So if it's been for a while, number one, there's things that you can use that are very safe. They're very, very safe to use. And number one, probably the cheapest form is drink a lot of water. Drinking a lot of filtered water is very good, because water, what it does, it detoxifies. It basically gets rid of the waste through your urine and through your, of course, feces. But it also gets rid of, when you're dehydrated too, that's what causes some issues as well. So when you're losing weight, sometimes you cut back on the water intake because you don't want to drink as much, but you kind of forget to. And some people, when they're on a high protein or a high fat diet, don't eat enough carbohydrates or drink too much caffeine. And if they don't balance that out with water, well, then what happens is they come into the problem of they get dehydrated, and that's what causes that toxic layer too. Because that's usually it's the last 10 to 15 pounds, or it's the last 10 to 15 pounds they got to lose, or it could be if somebody's losing a lot of weight rapidly in the beginning. So what do I mean by that? So if somebody's losing weight in the beginning by a large amount, say if you're, there was this woman I talked to, she weighed 210. She's like, yeah, I lost 20 pounds in the last 30 days. And I said, well, that's way too fast. I feel like crap. And I said, oh, that's why. Because your body, once you have these toxins, they stick in your fat. And the reason why you can't get rid of them, that 5 or 10 pounds, or if you're losing weight too fast, those toxins become activated in the bloodstream and they circulate in the bloodstream. So if you lose, when I lost 200 pounds, I just started taking certain supplements I'm going to go over that are helpful to actually help correct the situation. But until I did that, I didn't know anything about that. That was about 8-9 years ago. So bottom line is, when you're feeling that sick, kind of, you're cutting calories, but nothing seems to be going, it's that toxic layer of fat. So the toxic layer is a benefit for the simple fact that it is actually there to protect your organs from being overcooked. It's not a bad thing. It's the same thing when you're losing too much weight. It does that as a protective mechanism. The problem is your brain does not know how much you weigh when you look in the mirror. Your brain basically goes on leptin and ghrelin and, of course, NPY, which is a neuropeptide, which says you're full in your brain. So those are things that are very important to understand, but there's some things you can do to avoid that. Obviously, number one was, as I said, drink a lot of water. Number two is obviously, exercise is very good. It's not expensive. It's free. Sweating the toxins out. Even go to a sauna if you belong to a gym. If they have a sauna or infrared sauna, sweating the toxins out that way. That's a good way to do it. I've done that before. It's very beneficial and you feel a lot better afterwards. There's also chiropractic care is actually beneficial for getting the toxins cleared out, because if your body's out of alignment and you're not breathing properly, your chakras and your spinal situation, if it's not in a good place, then you're going to have that issue. So that's a problem as well. But there's some staple things that you can do that would really help it immediately. Number one is, obviously, if you're having those feelings and you're still doing that, you need something to absorb the toxins coming out through your urine and your fecal matter when you take a bowel movement. So a couple of those things are, number one is dietary fiber is very important for that, because fiber is like a sponge. Fiber slows, especially soluble fiber is beneficial for that. So what soluble fiber does, it takes it's like a sponge. So it takes those toxins and kind of sponges it, and it kind of gets in there and it kind of like gets things together to where they're not, basically, affecting your bloodstream, and they go their way out. And usually there's a couple products out there. Benefiber is good. I mean, you can get organic fiber, that's fine. Frankly, it doesn't matter. Benefiber, you can go to BJ's. I think it's like a Sam's Club over here in the Midwest, but you can get a big thing of it for I think $18. It'll last you a year. Slowly start up on the dose. Obviously, you don't want to go too high, but I would say that's probably one of the best things. Benefiber or Miracle Fiber by Vitamin Shop's a good brand as well. So I would say that those are good brands. Gummy fibers, those are lower quality, but you can still use those as well. You can also use superfoods. Obviously cilantro is good for detoxifying heavy metals. There's also a supplement that's a superfood. It's called chlorella. It's a blue-green algae. It is good for getting rid of radiation. It's also good for getting rid of PCBs and polyvinyl chlorides, PVCs or whatever, plastics, and the stuff that degrades from the electrical insulation they used to put on the telephone wires when Westinghouse did it in the 70s. When it degrades, it becomes more toxic. So it is in the bloodstream of probably ubiquitous amounts in the amount of Americans today. But also chlorella is really good for getting rid of the toxins in the body. It's very good. That's what I used when I lost my last 15 pounds. When I was in about a 2-month period where I lost like a half a pound over 2 months, I went from 209.5 to 209. And I was like, I need to lose another 5 pounds. I couldn't do it, but I took the chlorella, and over a month I lost the extra 5 pounds. I went to my goal weight. So, I mean, obviously I was smoking back then, so there was a lot of higher toxic load. I don't smoke anymore. Obviously that's benefit, but also too, it's kind of hard because I substituted food for a time to do that, but now I'm changing my lifestyle, and that's important too. But that's what you can do. And those are some of the solutions for that. Obviously exercise is the biggest thing. So, as we're going through this right now, so like I said, we talked about the toxic layer. Those are some solutions of that. There's a couple questions I had from people that I know about the cholesterol myth, or talking about cholesterol. Right now we're going to talk about the dangers of low cholesterol, and that's what I'd like to talk about today, the next portion. So low cholesterol, if your total cholesterol is below, I think there was an article that came out, and like I said, this is just a pilot, but in the future we're going to have these links so that way you can see them and you can actually look for yourself, so that way you have those. I'm definitely going to make sure that I have all those in place, so I do apologize if I don't have them right with me right now. One of the articles stating that low cholesterol, below 100 total LDL and HDL, has been linked to suicide and homicide, and erratic behavior, and depression. Well, that doesn't surprise me. Cholesterol, and people don't know, is 25% of the weight in your brain. Your gray matter, your brain is 75% cholesterol, but 25% of cholesterol is actually in the brain. So that means it's a very important signaling pathway for all the neurotransmitters. Cholesterol is a steroid. It is a precursor to progesterone, estrogen, testosterone, estradiol, whatever you want to call it. The king of hormones is steroids, and of course you need vitamin D for it to go through. So a lot of people that are vitamin D deficient have that cholesterol issue as well. So that's what kind of cracks me up, is like people are saying, even the medical journals are saying, 2 eggs a day isn't necessarily bad. Now, obviously, they should be high quality eggs, cage-free, free range, whatever you want, or even organic. But eggs are, a good form of cholesterol. So is a good, grass-fed beef. But cholesterol is not the culprit. It's a signaling molecule, in my opinion. Now, like I said, I could be wrong, but I think it's a signal. If it's too high, it could just mean that maybe your inflammation's too up, or this, or it could be something like that. But also too, when they've done studies on centenarians, their average cholesterol total was like 286. So if you don't live to 100 years old, if you have a total cholesterol of like 80, 85, or 90, you're not going to live 100 years old. If you want to live that long, that's all I'm saying. So if you want to live that long, obviously you have to, get in the process of, obviously cholesterol is important. 10% is made from food. The other 90% is made from food. The other 10% is made from your body. So basic cholesterol is involved with the myelin sheathing in the brain. So it's kind of like electrical insulation. So when you have low cholesterol, I've done this with people, and I says, well, just eat a shitload of eggs. And they'll eat like 3 eggs a day for a week. And like, man, I feel better. Well, yeah, because the cholesterol and the vitamins and the selenium and the macronutrients that are in there are making you feel better because it's actual food. It was like, what was your breakfast before? Pop-Tarts. Well, Pop-Tarts is sugar and carbohydrates. There's no protein. Protein is important in the morning, obviously, for your liver to get going. It's the same as, if you have a high protein breakfast, it's the same metabolic effect as a 3 to 5 mile jog on your liver. That's very important. Also too, if you can do it, the best time to exercise is first thing in the morning to burn fat, because it's on an empty stomach and you're burning fat, not sugar. So that's if you can metabolically handle it. A lot of people can't, because in our culture we're taught we have to snack ourselves like cows that are grazing on grass, which is not necessarily needed. Your liver can get a snack. It comes from the bile acids 3 hours after your meal has been processed. But cholesterol is not necessarily evil. It's not necessarily good or evil. It's just a marker. And cholesterol can be a good thing in the sense that, looking at the study, obviously there's cholesterol, they feel better after they eat this, or their cholesterol's higher. So basically it's almost like a bell curve. If it's higher than 220, then yeah, it becomes an issue. If it's lower than 130, then it becomes an issue. So anywhere between 150 and 225 is a sweet spot for total cholesterol in a lot of these journals. So a lot of times what a lot of people will do, with these problems, a lot of it's diet, and a lot of total low cholesterol below 100 normally stems from diet. A lot of it is from either they have a deficiency of, just eating eating good foods, or they're just eating junk, or they're eating a lot of inflammatory foods that cause that. So that could be it as well. But that's part of the process. Also too, with cholesterol as well, cholesterol is needed for sex hormones. So guys out there, I'm going to tell you right now, if you want to be the man in the relationship with your woman, eat some damn eggs. I'm being serious. It's going to help you out, because if you're a vegan, you're going to be docile as heck. You're going to be lackluster. You're not going to have it. Now, if you eat eggs and fatty meats, what do you think they feed show horses? Do you think they feed them oats and honey? No, they don't feed them that. So, kind of wanted to go off on a tangent there. I know I was going off on veterinary medicine as well, but there's a lot of similarities to animal-type nutrition. There's the human, like horses get pica, which is kind of like a trace mineral deficiency. The same thing that humans have, where you see pregnant women eating dirt. So that was on kind of a tangent. So last topic we're going to talk about today is on the Nutrition News Network is, of course, nutrition for arthritis. I am a sufferer of arthritis. I have osteoarthritis, obviously, from injury, but also to just weight. And there's also rheumatoid, which is more inflammatory. They're both bad. They wear away at the joints in the body, and there's a couple things you can do for it. Number one, when you get in your 30s, a lot of people, what they'll do is they go through this problem of they have these itises that pop up, like tendonitis, tennis elbow, or, this type of itis, and then they have arthritis, because the synovial fluid within the joints usually breaks down in the 30s because of either over repetitive use, or weight, too much weight, or sometimes just metabolic toxins, eating a poor diet, things like that can possibly, contribute to it, but there's a lot of things else it can do as well. So one thing I do want to say about, arthritis in general, number one thing for arthritis is you want to get your inflammatory markers down. So how do you do that? Well, it's very simple. You get your inflammatory markers down by obviously looking at a couple things that you're trying to look at, which is the fish oil. Obviously, fish oil is a wonderful product. It's not a, it's not a one-shot cure. It's not a, excuse me, it's had something pop up there. It's not a one-shot cure, but it is going to help with the inflammation. My personal favorite is Wellness Resources, DHA, Daily DHA. DHA is the elongated. It's 22, I think it's 22 or 24. Yeah, 22 strands, long-chain fatty, purified fatty acids. Omega-6 is, or omega-3, I think omega, what is it? Omega-3, or yeah, EPA is basically what, I think 20 long-strain polyunsaturated fatty acids. Anyways, I'm not looking at it right now. But too much EPA can actually thin the blood way too much. And EPA is actually really good at brain inflammation and obviously lowering the amount of fat tissue in your body, especially white adipose tissue, which is fat. And it's also good for adiponectin, which is basically the higher adiponectin level, the lower your weight is going to be. So DHA, fish oil, omega-3 could, basically 1 to 3 total grams of DHA. So some people might have to take 6, 7 to 10 capsules a day. It just depends on your situation. If it's really severe, probably like 4 grams, with meals throughout the day. Obviously, that's going to help you out a lot. First off, on the inflammation, but the second part, it's going to help with the back end where it goes into your cells, and that usually takes about 6 to 8 weeks. So fish oil is a good option. So we have fish oil, obviously. There's also turmeric or curcumin, 95% curcuminoid. And the other one, C500 curcuminoids from Wellness Resources. They're a great product. It's really good for getting rid of the inflammation. And I had tendonitis in my ankle. I sprained my ankle. I had tendonitis. I had a twisted tibia. And this is in July of 2015. And I'll never forget the story. I couldn't walk. I had to wear a boot. And I went on the treadmill. And when I was on the treadmill, so what happened was, when I was on the treadmill, after 2 weeks, granted I wasn't jogging anymore, couldn't do that, but I was able to walk. The other time it happened to me in 2012, did the same thing with the same boots. It took me almost a month and a half without it. It'll help with repair. For me, it helped with repair. I can't diagnose or treat anything. I'm just saying, for me personally, it helped. So that's what I would say. It would be definitely a thing to look into. Turmeric is very good, obviously, at doing that. Another one that I really like, and it's got to have the 95% curcuminoids, because if it doesn't, you're really throwing your money down the drain. Turmeric's good as a spice if you want to make like a curry dish or something like that. There's nothing wrong with that. However, you want to make sure it has the active ingredient. So there's a lot of things that are active and inactive. As you age, the amount of vitamin B12 to basically peristaltically get it through your stomach and everything, the ability to absorb it as you age goes lower. So if you use cyanocobalamin, which is a B12 with a cyanide molecule, it's the cheapest form. If you use that, normally it's about 1 or 2% absorption. So you take 1,000 micrograms, you're probably going to absorb probably like 10 micrograms. If you take methylcobalamin and adenosylcobalamin, which is the active forms, your body can take it. It's kind of like that. And anybody who is getting older, B vitamins are very important for not only energy, but mood. And there would be so many lives saved in the military. And it's a shame that there's so many suicides in the military. It's a sadness that I have about it. All these people, 20-some people a day die of it. And they, obviously counseling would help, but just a good steady supply of B vitamins and magnesium would save a lot of misery. So the curcumin has to be active. That's important. Also, too, hyaluronic acid is like in the synovial fluid. If you increase that, it doesn't necessarily cure everything, but what it does, it gives you more cushion in your joints. Because if you sit there and you do stretches like I did last night, if you have arthritis, if you're rolling around, you're doing yoga, and you're rolling around, and it feels like you're literally, when you roll on your back, your hips, it feels like you're rolling on pebbles. That's OA. And that's, your hip flexors and everything, they're brittle. They're getting brittle because basically of overuse and age and just the way they are. So that's important for the synovial fluid. So after a few weeks, you start putting it in. I've used it before, and it's fantastic. I mean, my walking speed went from 3.1 the one time I took it for 30 days to like 3.8. I stopped taking it after a month and went back to about 3.1 again because I couldn't walk as fast. My range of motion still sucked. Even though I stretch and I do all that stuff, it still sucked. But those are some solutions. And like I said, obviously staying active, but not overdoing it. So, great first podcast. Thanks for being a part of it. If you want to go ahead and subscribe, please subscribe to my channel down there. I am Brian, and I am with the Nutritional News Network, and I will see you next Friday. Awesome. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This show or products in the show are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Nutrition News Network, all rights reserved, 2019.